Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that grabs our attention. I am Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and Compass is a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all this stuff. And you can find us at CompassKnox.com, joined by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshark. Jesse, how you doing this week?
I'm doing real well. You know, got my car to drive over here this morning, and Head to Toe by Lisa and Cult Jam came on the radio. And I just want to say that there is no day that starts with Lisa that is going to be an all bad day. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, all right. I did not have that experience. So
I was going to ask, what is this radio thing you speak of? I don't know when the last time I've done that.
I love terrestrial radio, man. I've got a full slate programmed in my car. I don't know. Yes, I stream a lot of music too, but I'm a big fan of broadcast.
I made the mistake of leaving the house without my phone, and so I was stuck listening to radio last night for a little bit.
Stuck listening to the radio.
It's a generational thing, guys. Just
it must be.
I'm going to give a shout out here real quick for our Knoxville area listeners. 97.1. They're not a sponsor of us or anything. It's just a radio station here, but they recently changed their format to, they call it Throwback Hip Hop and R&B. It's hip hop and R&B from the late 80s up to sort of like the mid 2000s. Just like banger after banger after banger. It's a fantastic station. Highly recommended.
Well, there you go. And maybe they could send in a check after the fact.
Sure, happy to take
kind of like we were hoping Kit Kat would do after last week when we talked about Halloween candy. And he has already spoken up, but our engineer and producer is Lord Seth Barber, and we are in his domain, Barbarian Production Studios. Seth, you've already popped in. You jumped in and just started taking over the show already. But how are you doing? What's the 3-day-old weather report?
It is a gorgeous Friday. It is beautiful, sunny, not hot. Those are the combinations I like best on a day. Although there are some threats of some showers coming in this evening, which I'm supposed to be out for football in tonight. So, which I'm good with. I don't mind getting out in the gross sometimes.
Oh, good.
So there's that, and then since the other tradition has become me talking football, I predict we don't lose this weekend with UT having the bye weekend.
A safe prediction.
That is safe. Of course, we can always ask what the over/under is on the size of the contract that Penn State is going to be offering Josh Heupel this week, but.
Well, I mean, I think with your and I record from last week, we're going to go with under because we hit our under on the voting record last week.
So, we did. We did.
Just barely. We'll talk about that.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Barely. My over almost came in.
I was pleasantly surprised that I was stressing my under bet at all there on the end of Tuesday evening.
Well, we will talk about that. We'll run through a whole bunch of stuff that we covered in the last week. Actually, not a whole bunch. Most of it was the election, so that'll take most of the time on the show today. But we will talk briefly about the Fair at Home business ordinance that we talked about before, and where it's going, which is basically nowhere fast. Matt Evans, who's the assistant chief deputy of the Knox County Sheriff's Office, has decided not to run for sheriff. He was going to be a candidate in a very crowded field, but he's dropped out, and we'll tell you why. Also, Tamar Sherinian, who is the University of Tennessee professor who got into hot water with the administration over on the Hill for her tweets about the late Charlie Kirk. She has decided to file a lawsuit.
It was actually a Facebook comment, to be totally accurate.
Yeah, Facebook comment, and but she filed a lawsuit against the university for their actions that they've started taking against her. Also on this week, the suffrage coalition here in Knoxville announced where they're going to put the Women's Suffrage Museum. It is going to be on Gay Street. We were down at the announcement for that on Thursday, and but we're going to start and spend most of our time talking about the election results. The Knoxville municipal election wrapped up on Tuesday with Election Day, and the big question was answered emphatically. Voters overwhelmingly rejected the proposed sales tax increase, and left no doubt whatsoever about the mood to raise that tax 0.5%. To match the state's maximum level, but it was this was proposed, and we've talked about this almost every week for the last couple of months. Mayor India Kincannon proposed doing this to pay for infrastructure and affordable housing throughout the city. It was not kind of an emergency thing. The city is not in any kind of financial difficulty at the moment, but she had said that she wanted to get ahead of the rapidly increasing population and get some of these infrastructure projects out of the way, so that the city could accommodate that growth. The residents who live here now didn't buy it. It was one of those things that failed in every single precinct except 4 in the city, and it was just it almost you almost feel that it was a personal defeat for Mayor Kincannon. It was more than 60% of the vote. Was it 61.5% of the vote was against the increase? The 4 precincts where and Knoxville's got 52 precincts. Only 49 of them are active, because 3 of them are what are called ghost precincts. Nobody actually lives in them. They're very tiny and kind of these anomalies in the map when they draw it out for reasons we don't really need to go into. Just know that there are 3 precincts where nobody lives, and of those 49 active precincts, only 4 voted for the property tax increase. And the demographics of those districts, interesting. We got Sequoia Hills, is the traditional upscale neighborhood of in West Knoxville, and nearby Bearden, which is also fairly upscale. The area where that precinct is, the Green Magnet Academy precinct, which is just east of downtown. A lot of people might think, well, it is smack dab in the middle of affordable housing developments, and you might think, well, that's a very poor area. But the precinct also includes downtown, which has some of the highest prices of, especially by square foot, that can be found in Knoxville. And then the 4th and Gill and Old North Knoxville neighborhoods in North Knoxville, which are fairly fairly high end. It's not quite Sequoia Hills high end neighborhood, but they're
they've got their share of $1 million houses in those
they sure do. They sure do. And but anyway, those are the only 4 precincts that voted for it. Some of the precinct, the opponents were everywhere. They were just and some of them in some precincts, especially in East Knoxville and Northwest Knoxville, the opposition garnered more than 70% of the vote. I mean, it was,
and that I thought was really interesting because there was a concentrated explicitly Republican effort against the sales tax, which then they tried to build on to also, they were hoping build support for the Republican supported candidates, which didn't play out so much, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But those Northwest precincts that were so heavily against the sales tax are some of the most Republican precincts in the city. But those East Knoxville precincts that were also super against it are some of the most Democratic precincts in the city, which showed, like you were saying, that this was not just a sort of like political ideological vote, but I think a lot of it had to do with sort of more specifically how people felt about city leadership, about the case they'd made for the sales tax, and really how much people trusted the city administration. Yeah,
I think there were several factors that I think played a role in it. One of them was the timing of even the first announcement Mayor Kincannon announced this after the first reading of this year's budget, but before second reading, and the sales tax, if it had passed, wouldn't even take effect really until next year's budget. So it was very confusing right there. Now, there was a reason that they did that, because you have a sales tax referendum in a city, you have to give the county 40 days to join you if they so desire. So they had to do that perhaps earlier than they might have preferred doing it because of that. But they had the option also of announcing this before they did the 2025-26 budget announcement to try to keep it more separate. Did not do it confused a lot of people.
Well, right, because they were sort of simultaneously in the position of presenting this current year's budget and saying, basically, everything's fine. We don't need a property tax increase. Here's all the things that we're doing for the coming year. Mm-hmm. And then also at the same time saying, but we do need a sales tax increase. Yeah. And I think that was, cognitively dissonant to some people.
And there was that. Then also, in the meantime, between then and the election, you had the controversy over the administration's proposal to sell a portion of Chilhowie Park to Emerald Youth Foundation, which really they came under a lot of fire from a lot of quarters about how that process played out. That a lot of people, thought that they didn't know what was going on. They there wasn't they didn't feel like there was a public process involved in that. And a lot of people, when you it's following things online is good to an extent. A lot of people,
right. Anecdotal evidence is only that, but it can still be interesting.
Yeah, it's still interesting, and a lot of people, said that they were posted that removed their trust in the administration. They didn't trust the administration more. So when it came time to vote on the sales tax increase, they didn't trust the administration to do what they said they were going to do with the money, and they did have a plan that they laid out about how they were going to spend the money, and that it was online, and anybody could take a look at it. But really, there was this erosion of trust it really wasn't really an erosion. It was kind of a collapse of trust in a lot of quarters. And then there was one factor too that Kincannon raised. She did raise that one. She didn't think that played a big role in the sales tax referendum failure, because the margins of the sales tax referendum failure were so big. But and that was the just general anxiety over the economy. Right now the government's shut down. You've got people losing their SNAP benefits. You've got people who are getting sticker shock going to if they get their health insurance through the marketplace. And there's you got tariffs with possible inflation, and there's just a lot of uncertainty economically, and that probably played somewhat of a role. Had a role, because people are very nervous about what's going to become of them economically, and to ask people who are worried about their finances to pay more in taxes is a bit much.
Especially with a tax that is, as everybody knows, sales taxes are the most regressive major form of taxation that we have. And so I think any sales tax is always up against a little bit of a double whammy of opposition, because you have conservatives who just sort of tend to oppose taxes on general principle and don't think the government needs all that money. But then people on the left who tend to be more open to other kinds of taxation, especially sort of graduate, income taxes, things where the percentages go up the more money you make, tend to be against sales taxes, because they just inevitably have more impact on lower income people than higher, on the people who can afford it the least.
Right. For instance, the other major option for local governments is the property tax. Well, the sales tax taxes your consumption, your spending, and people who are low to lower middle income people spend almost everything they make on things that that get taxed,
that they need,
and whereas property taxes are more of a wealth tax. The higher you pay more, in a dollar amount, if your house is worth more. And if your house is worth more, you are wealthier. I mean, that's just standard. And so that is much preferred by those on the left to a sales tax. So and those on the right are opposed. A lot of times are opposed to any tax.
Yeah.
And in fact, when the sales tax referendum, one of the there were 3 committees, single issue advocacy committees that were formed, which you have to do and report your campaign expenses just like you would if you were running for office. But the mayor had her allies created one. Then there was R. Billy Marlowe, who's a developer who is opposed to a lot of the things the mayor's office has done in recent years. He butts heads with the administration all the time. He created a committee, but the other one was created by the Knox County Republican Party, and we don't know how much money they put into it, because the way they set theirs up, they don't have to even report how much money they were going to spend on it until February.
Right. We will circle back to that to check.
Yeah, we don't know how much we
sort of irrelevant at this point.
Oh yeah, but
I really want to find out if some of the people, because we did have the pro committee that was trying to push it, that some of the people that we know donated to that one are Republican Party donators as well, and I really want to find out if there is an individual who donated to both things whose money was essentially fighting itself in this race, just out of curiosity, but I do find that part kind of fun.
Well, it'd be one of those things where if they I imagine, and again, we won't see their reports till February, but if they donate to the Republican Party and the Republican Party turns around and gives money to this committee, then in a roundabout way they have. But if they give to that committee as well, then that's somebody's playing, burning the candle on both ends right there when they've got, they're giving to two different committees that are
fighting each other. Yeah.
Fighting each other.
I wish I had that kind of money.
Which is something you might get away with doing with candidates who are running for office. You don't know which one's going to win and which one might look favorably on you and your goings on if they get elected. This way, there is none of that really.
Right.
So, but as you might imagine from what we've talked about, the time we've already spent on this, it was a big driver on turnout. Now the first caveat you always have to throw out when you're talking about turnout in a Knoxville City election is that good is a relative term.
Right. The ceiling is low.
The ceiling is low. Only about a quarter of the registered voters in the city voted, and that would have been the case no matter what, is basically based on recent voting patterns. There are almost 100,000 people, and we had a little bit over 20,000 people who voted. In fact, we had
almost 25,000.
I was about to say we had 24,830.
Yeah.
Who or actually that's who voted for or against the referendum. So the total turnout was 24,908. 24, almost all of them voted in the referendum, and then a smaller amount, 21,173 voted in the city council races. So there was almost 3,700 voters who apparently voted on the sales tax referendum and then didn't vote for the city council member. Now, over 2,000 of them were from the 5th District, and the 5th District did not have a candidate on the ballot, but the others were spread out throughout the city. When you go and look at the precinct, most precincts, the number of people who voted that voted for this on the sales tax referendum question compared to those who voted in just the city council or in the city council races, there's always an 8, 10, 12, 14 vote difference there. So that was consistent throughout the city in that.
And I think conventional wisdom about what motivates people to vote would tell you that people who were coming out only or mostly to vote on the sales tax referendum were much more likely to be against it.
Yes, you don't. Generally speaking, it's a lot easier to go out and vote no when you're mad than it is to go out and vote yes because you think something's a good idea. And but that was is obvious that it voted. I mean, one of the things you can look at is you look at the overall turnout where you have 24,908 people voting, and that's the most people who voted in a city election since the 2019 election when we had a contested mayor's race on the ballot. And you think, okay, well that's good. We had a bigger turnout. Actually, the number of people who voted just in the city council elections was about the same as it was in 2021.
So you could give Mayor Kincannon credit for boosting voter turnout.
Yeah, well, actually, when she did come out and speak to the media in Market Square on election night, and after the official thing was over, she did kind of say, "Well, hey, at least we boosted turnout." I think she was trying to put, grasp for anything that was positive.
That's right. We got people engaged, even if they were mad.
Even if they were mad, they got engaged and they voted. And now one thing too that we kind of took a look at was to see how the sales tax referendum affected the council races, because we had five seats on the ballot, and they were all district seats. And of course, every single district defeated the sales tax referendum. But it was interesting because three of the candidates had come out and said they supported the sales tax referendum. Now, they couldn't do anything about it other than vote, just like anybody else. But they would be asked about it, and they responded, "Yes, I'm in favor of it." And those were three of the more progressive candidates. They were the three candidates who finished first in their primary, and Karen Adams in the first district, which is South Knoxville, Matthew DeBartoleben, which is the 4th district, North Knoxville, east of Broadway, and Nathan Honeycutt, who is West Knoxville's 2nd district. All of them won. Honeycutt by a huge margin. He got almost 80% of the vote in the primary. Well, it was kind of funny. All three of them supported to a degree the sales tax referendum, but the voters in their district it wasn't a uniform response to that, or didn't. I mean, just based on the numbers, we don't know exactly. But DeBartoleben won by 6. He had 80% of the vote. He got about 61% in the general election. It was his.
You mean Honeycutt?
I'm sorry, Honeycutt. Excuse me. He had a huge drop off. Melody Watts gained a lot of ground on him, but he had such a big lead and had such a, he raised a lot more money than any other candidate. He started earlier than just about any other candidate. He got a lot more votes in the primary than any other candidate. So he of all the candidates, he could have afforded to lose some ground in the general election, and it didn't hurt him. He won.
Well, and it's also hard to know, to what degree that had to do with his position on the sales tax, because the thing that I observe, I don't live in District 2, but I spend a lot of time in it or driving through it, and one thing I observed was a lot more Melody Watts signs over the last couple months, because, of course, she didn't have any reason to do a whole lot before the primary.
Right.
My sense was that campaign got better funded and much more visible, and so it could also just have been a factor of kind of and that she was one of the candidates who was kind of one of the unofficial Republican candidates, and so it might have also just been a function of them doing a better job getting out and reaching their voters and telling them, "Hey, here's somebody you can vote for."
Yeah, but in the other two races, the Republican candidates did not.
They didn't improve their standing.
They didn't improve. In the 1st district, Karen Adams actually improved her share of the vote, and Becky Jones, her opponent, who is the unofficial Republican candidate in there, didn't gain any ground, and lost badly. And in the 4th district, DeBartoleben improved a little bit on his margin. It was basically the same, but and Jeff Tallman, who was the unofficial Republican candidate there, who was backed better financially than any of the other Republican-backed candidates by the party itself and Republican donors, and made the sales tax the centerpiece of his campaign. He had his signs. He would refer to himself as Jeff No Tax Tallman. And
he had the in-kind donation from the mayor, right? That was
he jokingly put down that the referendum was an in-kind contribution from the mayor. Well, and he didn't improve his lot. He was he was strong in the same areas where he was strong before, the Alice Bell Spring Hill area of North Knoxville, and other than that, DeBartoleben won.
And that was also maybe the only race where we saw some real kind of negative campaigning, with a flyer that went out attacking DeBartoleben for kind of like not being from around here and kind of making various weird insinuations about him, which didn't come from...
He was an art curator.
Right, he was an art curator. Oh, no. And that didn't come from Tallman personally. No. It came from, a third party
It came from the Republican-backed committee on the sales tax referendum.
Right.
So, they
really tried.
They did try. They tried really hard.
But it didn't work, and I think that showed that, that district, these districts that we're talking about have been voting sort of reliably more progressive / Democratic than Republican / conservative for some years now. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like, for all the efforts that we have seen from some of our local Republican and conservative operatives in recent years, I don't feel like these results show that they're shifting that in any particular way.
No,
I agree. And if you look at if you're looking at the precinct map that we were talking about earlier, combined with the three candidates, the handful of precincts that did the best with the referendum are in each of these candidates' respective districts.
Right.
And so, for their sake, as far as who they're reaching out to, it's like at least a good portion of their district are the handful of neighborhoods that actually wanted that too.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that might have influenced a little bit in the positive direction for them in that sense.
But when you get down to the district overall,
right,
all of those districts voted down the sales tax.
So basically, people didn't penalize the more progressive candidates for the sales tax or their positions on it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it was. They were, and I've actually made this comment to someone I was talking to about. This was before the election day. I was asking about, will it hurt these candidates? And I didn't think it would hurt them appreciably. Because city voters are, they understand the difference between a sales tax and a candidate, and could separate the two, and did. They didn't penalize anybody or most didn't penalize anybody. Now there was the one district where it could have and probably did have an impact. Was the 3rd district, where both candidates opposed the sales tax increase. You had Doug Lloyd, who was the Republican-backed candidate in that district, and Frank Ramey, who was more of a Democrat. He had a lot of support from Democrats. He's not whole hog blue. He's not dark blue like a lot of
sort of a self-defined moderate.
But he was against the sales tax increase, and Lloyd came in first in the primary, and he came in second. There were 4 people in that primary, and the other 2 were conservatives as well. So, Lloyd already, kind of, you figured he had the advantage, but. It was actually a pretty darn close race.
Yeah, I thought it was closer than I expected, to be honest.
Yeah, it was 5.4 percentage points, and there are some who were allies of Ramey who said they thought that the sales tax issue hurt him, not because of his position necessarily, but the Republican Party and Republican donors who were most vehemently anti sales tax also were supporting Lloyd. So
and that's also just a district with more, like, if you were looking for a place where you can get the biggest bang for turning out Republican voters by getting them mad about a tax increase, there's just more Republican voters in the 3rd district than in most of the city.
Right. And this the outcome here is exactly what Elaine Davis, the state representative who represents this area, and Eric Wider, the political consultant, had in mind when they pushed through the change in the election process, where before, since 1969, in elections in the city, in district races, the district voters would vote in the primary, and the top two finishers would go on to the general election, but voters citywide would vote in the general election for all district council members. That was changed through state law, and it was changed because of the third district, because it had happened a couple of times that the person who finished second in the third district primary, who invariably was a little bit more progressive, or a little bit more to the left, especially Seema Singh, who's the current office holder there, would Singh, for example, first time she ran, lost pretty badly in the primary, which was district only voting, and went citywide and won. And the GOP didn't want that to happen again, and by golly, it didn't.
Well, and it is pretty fun. I mean, like last year when they were pushing that change through, like we talked about this over, it was very explicit what the effort was and what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's
and
no secret.
The thing that we said at the time was, well, they can probably pick up the third district, might make Republican-leaning candidates a little more competitive in a few of the other districts, but the third district seemed like the only place they had a really solid shot, and so like it kind of played out exactly. And as you were saying, this was clearly what Davis and Wyatt had in mind, was like, we want to be able to win at least one city council seat for a Republican.
Well, they couched it in terms like it was this is more fair to the 6th district, which is the only majority-minority district, and that it would ensure that black voters would be able to elect black candidates, which they had under the old system every single election. But that was not, that was to get,
Creed. That was the cover story.
That was the cover story. Well, I mean, it was to secure support in the state legislature where this decision was made from, or at least mute the opposition from Democrats, especially those in Memphis and Nashville that have high African American populations and more African American representatives in the legislature. So it was smart politics.
And a reasonable case to make, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
District reps should be elected by district voters. It's how we elect every other office. So there was nothing like radical about the idea.
And
Well, the thing about it is that when you talk about that process, you say, okay, this majority-minority district, the district voters pick the top two candidates, but the white majority city-wide electorate picks the winner, and that sounds, it sounds bad.
And it's also almost certainly the reason that it was put it, like the reason we did have that system was it was created after the Voting Rights Act, and it really did gave the white majority in Knoxville essentially veto power over anybody too radical coming out of the black majority district.
But the funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Yeah.
The citywide electorate, almost every election since 1969, voted for the top finisher from the 6th district primary.
Yep.
It only happened a couple of times. The last time it happened was 1999.
And in that case, famously, Danny Mayfield, the former city council member, the citywide electorate actually chose the candidate who was more progressive than also a black candidate than the black candidate who won the primary. So yes, there had been various wrinkles with it through the year, but it's interesting to get through this election and kind of see, well, how is this change going to actually affect representation? And I think what we saw is it affected it about like we would expect. And the reality is that the winner in every case, all 5 seats, the winner of the primary won in the general. So there weren't really any big surprises out of it.
No, well, that wouldn't have been it would have been a surprise if the winner in a primary had lost in the general, because it's the exact same electorate.
Yep. And in some cases, the exact same candidates.
And same deal. Now, in the 6th district, which is the majority minority East Knoxville, it's not just East Knoxville downtown. It goes all the way out to Marble City. It's cuts a swath across the entire city, inner city. But the primary there was a 5-person primary. The top 2 finishers were Denzel Grant and Stan Johnson. Grant came in first, barely. Each of them got about a third of the vote, which meant 1/3 of the vote was just completely up to grabs, and that's just the primary vote. You know that, the turnout was going to be higher in the general election. So it was kind of a toss up there as far as handicapping. I mean, you could look at the 2nd district and say, you can feel pretty confident before, after the primary, that Honeycutt was going to win the general election. You could make that prediction, and very few people would argue against you. But in 6th district, it was a toss up. And the odd thing that happened there was, in the general election, Grant blew Johnson out of the water. And Johnson
won 61% of the vote.
Yeah, and so I mean he got just about all the votes that people who either voted for other candidates in the primary or didn't vote in the primary, they all went to Grant. And
which was interesting because, that's a district where, first of all, there was no quote-unquote Republican-leaning candidate. Right. It's the most Democratic
district. There's no such thing
in the city.
Almost no such thing.
Republicans do not invest a lot of effort in that part of the city. And coming into the campaigns, I think a lot of people would have maybe given Stan Johnson an edge, because both Johnson and Grant have been very involved in the community. Both have run nonprofits in the community. But Johnson's been engaged for longer. Mm-hmm. And he also had more what I would call establishment support. Mm-hmm. He was able to raise money from some of the more deep-pocketed donors in town, because they know him through his work with Seed, the nonprofit that he runs. Mm-hmm. And he presented himself, I think, a little bit more as like the polished guy who knows how things work and he can get in there and be effective, whereas Grant very much presented himself as sort of like a voice of the people, really touted the fact like he grew up in Austin Homes, and just kind of like his roots in the community are maybe or he at least portrayed them as being at a more grassroots level.
And when he started getting involved in the community, he was originally one of the primary activists in Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
Then he, as he told me, was he realized that just protesting would not bring about change, and he kind of shifted gears, and then headed up Turn Up Knox, the violence interruption organization, for a while. But they had a big falling out with the
Kennedy
administration.
They got crosswise with the mayor, right?
And so anybody who might have thought that he was a sellout for working with the mayor and all when he was running that kind of blew that narrative a little bit from that. And he was also very vocal in the debate over the sale of the portion of Chilhowie Park to Emerald Youth Foundation.
Yeah, that seems like kind of maybe the crux of that particular race.
And he did particularly well in the East Knoxville precincts that are around the Burlington area and around Austin East and the whole area that primarily affected or would have affected. He did extremely well. He did well throughout the entire district. I think believe that Johnson only carried Green Magnet precinct, which again includes downtown. So used to didn't really have to even mention downtown because nobody lived there, but so many people that live there have moved there now that it is a political. It's got some political sway in and of itself. Although, as kind of these results kind of show that, you can win that district and not worry about downtown residents, and it's a different neighborhood. It's not, there's no such thing as traffic calming devices that you put in the neighborhood streets downtown. So, because traffic's already calm because you got so many red lights. But anyway, that council makeup is going to have, in the 3rd district alone, you had Seema Singh, who was one of the most progressive members of council, who is term limited off and is replaced by Doug Lloyd, who is the most conservative, who will be the most conservative member of the new council.
Right, certainly will come in with a lot of skepticism of Mayor Kincannon, and especially anything that has to do with spending city money.
And then you've got Grant, who, while he has worked with the mayor and is open to working with more people in the establishment and everything else, he is much more likely to push back against the administration than Gwen McKenzie, who is that representative. And who's term limited.
Yeah, she's been a real ally of Kincannon's.
Yeah, she's been an ally of Kincannon's,
including supporting the sale of land there at Chilhowie Park.
Absolutely. So, it'll be there'll be a little bit more sniping from both the left and the right. I think a little bit. When you for Kincannon, although the core support there, I think is still she's still going to get. She's still going to have 6 to 7 votes.
Yeah, but I think probably in addition to those, the shifts of the people on council, the other combination of things she's facing is she is a lame duck. She only has 2 years left in her term. So your clout as a mayor just kind of declines at that point anyway.
It's just a natural progression.
She's coming off of back-to-back what are now 2 pretty significant defeats with the Chilhowie Park land deal and the sales tax referendum. When you have a mayor who goes out there and really pushes for a couple of significant items and gets beat back pretty strongly, that sends a signal to everybody, including the members of council, that this isn't somebody who necessarily has the juice they had a few years ago. And council members, I think, are going to, especially now these 5 council members who they're going to be on city council for longer than Kincannon's going to be mayor. Yeah. And then some of the existing council members, well, they're either, they're all going to be term limited. And so they don't necessarily have to worry. They certainly don't need to worry about Kincannon's support for a future campaign. Some of them, like Andrew Roberto, who we've talked about, who is maybe thinking about running for mayor himself, he's already separated himself from Kincannon on a couple of major issues, including the sales tax and the Chilhowie Park sale. And so to the degree that any of those people are thinking about future elections, it may be more in their interest to pull away from Kincannon than support her. Now, I think one result of that is likely to be that Kincannon just may not push for anything too big that's going to be too controversial because of those dynamics.
Yeah. And everybody who is term limited like this will say, I'm going to keep pushing for things until the day I leave office. Well, it doesn't really work out that way usually. So, one thing about the election, before we move on to other topics, is that I kicked myself for a couple of days. Actually, not for a couple of days after the election, when I realized I'd skipped reporting something of import, and that is that for the last since 2019, there has been a majority of women on city council.
Yeah,
in 2019, there were 7. Actually, 7 of the 9 members were women at the beginning of the term. And Stephanie Welch, who was elected the first district, resigned to take a job in the administration and was replaced by Tommy Smith. So it was a 6-3 split, male and female. That has prevailed up until this day. There were 6 women on council and 3 men. After these candidates take their oath of office in late December, there will be 5 men and 4 women.
Yeah,
So-
I did notice that and think about it. And, what I think it represents is, because it's interesting, City Council was, the school board was the first of our local bodies to become, have majority women representation, which is maybe not surprising. You kind of think of women sort of traditionally being more involved with education than City Council. And then County Commission also became majority women in the last election cycle and still is. And so now we're shifting back to, right, like you said, a 5-4 split. I think what it really signifies is that we're pretty much done, at least at those levels, talking about, the first woman to do this, the first woman to do that, at least at these local bodies. This is still not true at our state legislature, which remains just highly and disproportionately full of white men. But at these local levels, I think it maybe is fair to say that, that doesn't really matter anymore.
And we got the final hurdle of the county mayor, but that's about it.
Right. We have not had a woman county mayor.
And I don't pay attention
but we have 2 women running for county mayor next year so far. We'll see. But yeah, I think you can, you never want to say, like sexism is dead or whatever. It certainly persists in various ways. But when it comes to running for these local offices, I think like we're probably going to go through shifts where sometimes there's more women than men and vice versa, but that does not really, it certainly doesn't seem to be a factor in terms of electability at the local level.
Oh, I certainly would not want anyone to get the idea that this was some kind of male backlash against women office holders. I think one of the things, and one of the reasons that it was one of those things I thought about before the vote, but when the vote came and I'm going through all the numbers, I really didn't, step back enough to go, whoa, they're only going to be, 3 women on council after December. But anyway, was certainly not that. One thing that happened 2 days after Election Day, regarding women and voting, is the Suffrage Coalition, which has already raised money for and paid for the erection of suffrage movement memorials in Knoxville, closed on a building on Gay Street where they are going to open a women's suffrage museum. Here in Knoxville, they've closed on one building and got a contract on the adjacent building. They made their big announcement Thursday, closed the streets down and had it right out there on Gay Street. And Wanda Sobieski, who is the founder and driving force behind the Suffrage Coalition, she's and truly driving force behind these memorials. And
I was going to say driving force might be understating.
Yeah,
the case a little bit, like Sobieski. This is a mission for her.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when they talked about this, the museum, they said that we already have we have 1,000 artifacts more than 1,000 artifacts that we can put into this. Well, that's Wanda Sobieski's personal collection of memorabilia and artifacts that would go into the museum. But she has long honored and revered the women who fought for the right to vote in the late 1800s and the early part of the 20th century. And they had a huge celebration. The members of the coalition were there in the white garb of the original suffragists, and In fact, Sobieski was driven to the front of the building in the 700 block of Gay Street in a 1929 Ford,
Nice.
Model A. It was, but it was a big celebration. A lot of the, of course, we had Mayor Madeline O'Hara, who was the first woman mayor of the city of Knoxville, was on hand there, and she was also instrumental in helping Sobieski. Like you said, she was the driving force, and Mayor O'Hara was kind of, she rode in the sidecar, but she was very active in raising the money to get this done. And Mayor India Kincannon was there as well, the second woman mayor of the city of Knoxville. So, and we had the only sitting council member that I saw there was Lynn Fugit, who was a one of the women who is going to be on council for 2 more years. Karen Adams, who won her election in the South Knoxville district, was there. There were a couple of guys there too, but it is a major point of pride in for women, and rightly so, especially women in East Tennessee, because as many people know, if you don't know the history behind it, an East Tennessee state representative named Harry Byrne cast the deciding vote in the Tennessee legislature to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving the women the right to vote. And Tennessee was the last state that could ratify or needed to ratify.
Right, pushed it over
amendment. And there was the great story there of he was actually he wasn't from Knoxville. He was from Nyota down in McMinn County, and he was an anti-suffragist and was pretty much a guaranteed no vote on ratification. And then his mom wrote him a letter, a very famous letter, urging him to change his mind and vote for suffrage. And he thought about it and did.
And there is a statue of Harry Byrne and his mother downtown, just right next to the History Center.
East Tennessee History Center. That was
Market Street.
One of the memorials of Sobieski's
prior efforts.
The other one's in Market Square, and it honors the women who led the suffragist movement in Tennessee. So, but one of the interesting things there too was a woman named Becca Insminger McCombs was there, and Becca Insminger McCombs was a direct descendant of Harry Byrne's mom, Feb Burns, and she spoke at the event. Was very emotional. Talked about the how when she was told the story, she was already almost an adult when she was told the story, and just kind of said, "Well, that's an interesting story," just that. But later on, began to understand what a pivotal role her forebears played in this, and reached out to the coalition, and they embraced her, and she spoke very eloquently about the importance of remembering these stories, and not only telling the stories but listening to the stories. And I thought that was a very, very poignant moment of the event. One other thing that happened of import was it's kind of like not much like kind of sort of vaguely similar to Harry Byrne. Tim Hill, who's a developer, he's a member of the Planning Commission. He ran for city council last year, or 2 years ago. He has developed a lot of properties downtown. He used to own the main building where this was going to go in.
And this is on the 700 block of Gay
700
Street,
block, right by there's a parking lot there where there used to be a flower shop at the corner of the parking lot. It's the first building there. There is a second building next to it that his development firm, Hatcher Hill Properties, owns. And then that's next to Dazzo's Pizza. And if you're imagining this, and this is directly across the street from the big empty parking lot on Gay Street, the gap tooth on Gay Street. Anyway, he told kind of a funny story about Rogero giving him a call and saying, "We want to come talk to you about something and bring Sobieski with me." And he said, "Yeah." And what it was first of all, they wanted him to. He had previously owned the first building and had sold it, and they wanted to know a little bit more of the details of what's involved in there, because he's a developer and he had looked at redeveloping the building. And then they kind of, he said they had something up their sleeve, and it was they asked if they could buy the second building, the one next to the main building there, and he said that he really didn't want to sell it, and he said in our firm, I say no, my business partner says yes, so I'm the no guy, and he was skeptical. They already had plans to develop that a mixed use building, yada yada. I mean, they were a decent ways ahead on getting that project going. But he said he looked into everything the coalition had done and was persuaded to help out. So they arrived at a figure, and they're buying the second building for $2.9 million, I believe. The first building was $2 million. And they hit that fundraising goal. Now they're going to be raising money to buy the second one. And another thing, and he kept saying that Sobieski and Rogero had things up their sleeves, jokingly. And the other thing they had up their sleeve was they hit him up for a donation. And so he donated $500,000 from the firm to kickstart that
they can turn around and use to buy his building.
Buy his building,
right.
Yes. He's financing a portion of the purchase, but they had asked him if he would do that, and he and Mike Hatcher decided to go ahead and do it, and did, and so they're raising money. People can go to their website and see what they're doing and what they're going to be doing, with that. If they want to pitch into, they can. But that was an interesting moment too. But really, McCombs being there was the kind of, to me, was the most kind of moving moment of the event. And this is they've got the same person who did the Titanic entertainment museum and entertainment venue in Pigeon Forge, is going to be working with them about setting up the exhibits and things like that when they get to that point. But it's their plan now is to open in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be about 20,000. They're going to combine the two buildings. It'll be about 20,000 square feet, and as I said, about 1,000 artifacts. And judging, I mean, one of the things was that they not only closed down Gay Street, but they had a huge banner with the rendering of what it would look like when it's finished, because they're going to put a balcony on it and do some things to the facade. They dropped it down. It's a 2-story building, went from the roof to the sidewalk. And then also on the front of the second building, they had a flag, a replica of the temperance movement, the suffrage movement victory banner, which was a banner with 36 gold and purple stars, gold and purple colors of the suffrage movement, and 36 represents the number of states that ratified the 19th Amendment. And it's a huge banner, and it hung from that one. And so just judging from this, when they're just announcing it, when it does have a grand opening, for goodness sake, they might close down the hall of downtown.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something to look forward to. Like I said, opening in 3 more years. So now moving on, we had University of Tennessee professor Tamar Sherinian, who filed a lawsuit in federal court. Was it 2 weeks ago now? I guess almost. And Jesse, you've been covering this. So what is the what's the lawsuit? What's her beef with UT?
Yeah, and the lawsuit wasn't a surprise because, so to backtrack just a little bit, Sherinian is the professor in the Department of Anthropology who was singled out by, first of all, some online right-wing commentators, and then by elected officials, including our own congressional rep Tim Burchett and Senator Marsha Blackburn, for a comment. This is one comment she made on a friend's Facebook post after the death of Charlie Kirk, who, as we know, was shot and killed in Utah in September. And Sherinian, was a friend had posted something about Kirk and basically saying that they didn't agree with much of what Kirk had stood for, and Sherinian made a comment affirming that and saying in fairly strong language that, the world is better off without Charlie Kirk in it. She called Kirk's wife, Erica, a, quote, sick fuck for having married him, and said that Kirk's children would be better off growing up in a world without him. So strong language, strong opinion, but that's obviously all it was. It was just the opinion of somebody. And immediately after this comment got screenshotted the way things do these days, and then circulated through the kind of right-wing online social media and caught the attention of a couple of our elected officials, UT acted very quickly. UTK Chancellor Dondi Plowman immediately sent Sherinian a letter telling her that she was being suspended pending termination proceedings, that basically they were going to fire her for having, as Plowman framed it, for having endorsed and encouraged violence, and that we can't have university employees doing that. And this was obviously a response to, kind of the political outcry overall, and specifically about Sherinian's comment. And so Sherinian had already responded to that with a long letter that became public. UT Daily Beacon reported that. And I want to say, anybody who's not reading the Daily Beacon these days, they are really the best source of information about what's going on UT campus. We cover those things to the degree we can. The New Sentinel covers them to the degree they can. But if you really want to know what's going on at UT, read the Daily Beacon. They've got some very good reporters, and they have really been following this closely. But Sherinian sent a letter to Plowman basically making it, first of all saying, I apologize. This was a statement in the heat of the moment. I understand that it offended people, and so I'm sorry about that. But then saying, I'm an American. I have First Amendment rights. This was a statement made as a private citizen, not as a representative of the university, and basically making a case for why, both legally and kind of morally, she didn't think she should be fired. And she said, I hope we can resolve this without me having to sue you. And so the university did not respond to that and has continued along its path of its termination proceedings. She hasn't been fired yet, but they clearly are moving to do that. So she filed a preemptive lawsuit this week, trying to stop it last week, before it gets to the point of them actually firing her. And she basically makes a First Amendment case that this is just my opinion. This is America. I'm allowed to say this. And she did distinguish, because there were actually a lot of people across the country who were fired for things they said about Charlie Kirk online, because there was kind of a real witch hunt of sorts that went on. There were people, conservative activists online who were really kind of going around trying to compile, finding anything anybody anywhere in America said negatively about Charlie Kirk, and then finding out where they worked and raising hell with their employers and trying to get them fired. And so lots of people did actually get fired. But a lot of those people worked for private sector employers. And in the private sector, you do not have the First Amendment doesn't apply when it comes to private sector employment. If your boss sees you said something on Facebook that they don't like, in most cases they can fire you for it, and you can't say you're impinging on my First Amendment rights, because you're in the private sector. There's no government involvement, so the First Amendment doesn't really factor in there.
In most cases, they can fire you if they suspect you think something.
Right.
You don't even have to say it, because right to work states like Tennessee, they fire you for no reason whatsoever.
That's right. Most employment is at will, and that means that most termination can be at will as well. But there are other protections for public sector employees, and the reason for this is that in that case, your boss actually is the government.
Yeah.
And so if your boss, the government, punishes you for your speech, you do cross into First Amendment territory, because now that is becoming government-compelled speech or government-censored speech. And so the lawsuit makes a case that that's exactly what Sherinian has been subject to, not only because the University of Tennessee is an arm of state government, so she is a government employee, this is the government seeking to fire her, but also because UT was obviously reacting to specific political pressure from other people in the government, from Representative Tim Burchett, among others, and that this, in her argument, this is just straight up censorship. This is the government being mad at her for something she said and punishing her for it. And I guess we'll see where that lawsuit goes. There is a somewhat similar case out of South Dakota. I think an order in that case came down maybe a month ago or so. Quite similar, where South Dakota State University professor was fired for something he said about Charlie Kirk, and a federal court in that case issued an injunction against the university and the state saying, no, you can't, you are the state, you cannot fire one of your employees just because you don't approve of their political expression, as long as that expression is undertaken as a private citizen, not as a representative of the university, which Sherinian says is very much the case in her situation. And again, hers was a comment on a friend's post. It's not like she even went out on her own Facebook page and put up a whole thing about this. She was responding to a friend's post. So, we will see how that shakes out. My guess is that whatever UT's lawyers think of this situation, whether they think they're going to win or lose in court, probably does not matter a whole lot in some ways to UT, because UT is reacting to political pressure from the state, from Tim Burchett, from Marsha Blackburn, who of course is also running for governor. And so even if Sherinian is successful in this suit and UT loses, my guess is that UT administrators figure it's a better bet for them to go to court with a case they might lose than to back off of something and get Marsha Blackburn and Tim Burchett and whoever else in the Republican power structure in the state mad at them again. Because if they lose in court, they can say, well, we tried to punish this person for saying mean things about Charlie Kirk, but the courts wouldn't let us. So we'll see what happens.
And they are playing, having to try to thread the needle there between, not making the people who provide a lot of their funding mad, and following the First Amendment. In fact, this was after Sherinian sent her letter. Before she filed her lawsuit, the Board of Trustees met at UT Tower downtown, and a sociology professor, Paul Gellert, who is also a representative of the UTK chapter of the American Association of University Professors, spoke to the trustees, said it sounded like they were, recited the university policies on speech and academic freedom and procedures about that they could take, vis-a-vis professors that and all, and basically said, you gotta, we expect you to do the right thing. And Randy Boyd, now remember, this was before she filed the lawsuit, so this isn't an official university response to that. Although it sounded like it was written by lawyers, but Boyd, just said that they're committed to following all policies, federal law, state law, all these laws, and they will do so, and which is, what you expect him to say, but it did sound like it was written by lawyers that he was reading from that, and and that's going to be, that's going to be their response when this comes out. You almost rest assured that nobody's going to come out and say, well, we don't care what our policies and what the laws are. We're gonna violate them. Now they're not going to do that. I'll say, even if a judge finds otherwise. So.
Well, and one of the ironies here, which I think is interesting, is that UT actually has a very strong policy on freedom of speech for both students and faculty, which goes into a lot of detail, basically saying that even speech that is widely found by members of the university community to be in poor taste, to be offensive, it kind of has this whole list, basically says cannot be censored or restricted. We also have a pretty strong state law that was just passed a few years ago, saying essentially the same thing, that universities cannot punish faculty members or students for saying things that are offensive or outrageous. Again, it's a very strong First Amendment protection, even though it's a state law, but it's taking the inherent protections of the First Amendment and very specifically saying, here in Tennessee, universities can't do this. The reason that we have both that policy and that law is that at the time those were passed, and again, as recently as a few years ago, the perception in our Republican-dominated state legislature was that our universities are dominated by these left-wing ideologues who are trying to shut down conservative points of view that they find offensive. They're trying to shut down people who say things that are racist, who say things that are sexist, who say things that are anti-LGBTQ, and we cannot have, the good speech of our conservative students and faculty being penalized by these out-of-control left-wing universities. Well, now here we are a few years later, under the Trump administration, we kind of have this war on higher education going on nationwide, and the University of Tennessee is certainly under control of an administration that is doing everything it can to keep the Republicans in Nashville as happy as they can. And so it turns out that now they do want to punish people for saying things because, it's sort of like the inherent message is, well, we didn't mean that kind of speech. We didn't mean those people. We were thinking about, people bashing transgender people. We weren't thinking about people bashing Charlie Kirk. We don't want people bashing Charlie Kirk. But of course, the laws and the policies are not written to say that. They don't say conservatives can't be punished, even though that was obviously the intent. So yes, you could certainly say that there is some interesting about faces going on how strongly our state leaders feel about self-expression on our university campuses.
Well, that will be one of those things where it'll be settled, or it'll go to court. Go to court. My guess.
We'll see what happens. Maybe UT decides they don't have a good case and they settle. But again, I think probably for the administration, let's say the administration has a lot of incentive to just fight this all the way, because I don't think they care about what happens to Sherinian. Like, obviously they don't. They're trying to fire her.
Yeah.
They care about what Marsha Blackburn and other Republicans in the state think about that.
Well, I would think that Marsha and that cadre of peoples can then say, oh, these courts are doing these things and not doing whatever.
That's
so
right.
they can make it into a different sort of blame game. So UT can save face, and then Marsha Blackburn and those types can also save face, because you got a new person to blame once we get past whatever logical end will come from this.
We'll move from the Hill to the sheriff's office. There's no real easy transition there, but we have a sheriff's race in 2026. Lots of people running in the Republican primary. One of them is the Assistant Chief Deputy Matt Evans, and he went ahead and dropped out last week. He didn't drop out because of a scandal. He did not drop out because he didn't think he could win. He dropped out because it was pretty apparent that his candidacy would be challenged by other Republicans, and he would be found to not be a bona fide candidate. And in the Republican Party, according to their bylaws, he'd have to vote 3 of the last 4 primaries in the Republican primary, and these are statewide primaries, not local ones. Apparently, he did not do so, and would easily have lost a challenge.
He wasn't thinking far enough ahead.
He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't plotting when he was 35 years old. But anyway, so he is. He decided to drop out. He did not endorse anybody else, but we've got a whole bunch of other people: Michael Davis, Brent Gibson, Bernie Lyon, and former Sheriff J.J. Jones. They're all running. So the Republican field went from 5 to 4, and no Democrats have decided to run yet, or at least have announced that they were going to run yet. So, but we just wanted to note that the city election just ended. The county election, they haven't even, they can't even turn in their petitions yet, and
but a lot of those campaigns are already very well underway.
Oh yeah. But what I was going to say is they can't turn in their petitions yet. We've already got one dropping out.
Yeah.
Anyway, just real briefly, we have talked in last week about the Farragut Home Business Ordinance, where they were going to regulate businesses out of the homes with kind of a 2-tier regulatory regime of low impact businesses where you don't have traffic coming in and out of your home, and you're doing a lot of your stuff online or by phone. You don't have to get a permit. You can go about your business. If it does have a higher impact, you've got to get a permit. There's more regulations. Anyway, this is kind of a change for the city of Farragut, or town of Farragut, excuse me. But it's gone through a year or so of public input and a committee looking at it. Planning Commission passed it, but right when it was going to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, there was kind of some pushback from various folks on this ordinance as kind of being an example of government overreach. There was also the town itself kind of had some questions about it because of a lawsuit in Nashville, which is a similar but not identical ordinance, where the Nashville ordinance got thrown out. There was very different. The Nashville ordinance had businesses that were different categories of businesses that were exempt, but had no greater impact than those that weren't exempt. And that was kind of the fairness issue was the big one there. There is no lawsuit on this one yet. They haven't even passed it yet. They haven't even voted on it yet. But they pulled it back. They're not going to vote on it. Or they ended up not voting on it last month. This month it could be on the board's agenda. They have said that they could take it to the Planning Commission first. Planning Commission, the Farragut has its own municipal planning commission. Its agenda for the November meeting is out. It is not on that agenda, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. But so if you run a home business and you live in the city or town of Farragut, you better follow the existing ordinance, which apparently is more restrictive than this new one. So anyway, we do cast our eye toward Farragut every now and then, and this is one of those times, and we'll keep our ear to the ground about what happens there. That is about all we have time for. We covered last week to talk about coming up this week. We've got a bunch of meetings. If you're tired of listening about to stuff about government from the election, well, the city election, that's too bad. Because next week there's plenty more stuff. County Commission has its monthly agenda review meeting where they look at the agenda items should they so choose. The upcoming voting meeting, a couple of items worth note that will be on there. One is a proposal to extend the amount of time for the transition of management of the juvenile detention facility to the sheriff's office from January 1st to July 1st of next year. And we talked about all the problems that they had in our episode last week, all the problems that were uncovered there that need to get sorted out. The County Commission is going to be voting on that. Voting on another item that once again goes back to Charlie Kirk. We can't quit him. He last month, we reported on this, Commissioner Rhonda Lee wanted to honor Kirk with an honorary resolution, which is voted on by all commissioners. Is usually reserved for Knox County residents and businesses and other organizations. But there was a lot of pushback because she was doing this for a divisive national figure. It ended up passing on a split vote. These resolutions are almost always on, or they are always on a unanimous vote. They're always kind of innocuous. They last month when they were considering this, Bill Williams and Ken Schwall, the late broadcasters from WBIR, who just recently passed away, were honored. This month it's the Hardin. One of the honorees is the Hardin Valley, I want to say soccer team. I'll probably get it wrong because I don't remember.
A school team that won a championship.
School team that won a state championship.
Yeah.
But,
which they typically do. For
which they
school
do
teams
for
that
school.
Win, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, because of the controversy over Lee's resolution, the Rules Committee of the Knox County Commission met, and they have recommended that the county commission adopt a new rule. And new rule is that the tradition of reserving these only for Knox County residents and Knox County organizations be a requirement.
Right. It'll be codified now.
It'll be codified. You won't be able to do it.
It's one of these things where it's like they didn't have to write it down because everybody sort of understood that was the deal. And then when somebody comes along and says, well, nothing says I can't honor Charlie Kirk. So now they're saying, okay. Now we'll go in here and say you can't honor Charlie Kirk or, Kamala Harris or anybody else like that you want to try to put a resolution for.
Well, they're going to be, they don't have to talk about any of these. These are on the agenda. They can talk about them. There's another piece on there where another proposal in there for an ordinance restricting who can buy property in Knox County that Commissioner Andy Fox is putting forward. We haven't seen a copy of the actual proposed ordinance, just the caption, but it's some kind of restriction on ownership. There is, somebody's out there probably making book on what it is, but that's something that may or may not get discussed as well. City Council's meeting on Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry. County Commission's meeting Monday. That meeting is at 3:00. At 5:00, they're going to go over zoning matters, which appear to be all non-controversial. They were all approved by unanimous votes at the Planning Commission, or approved for recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unanimous votes, most of them on the consent agenda, which meant they weren't even discussed. So that's all happening Monday. Tuesday, City Council meets at 6 and in the main assembly room of the City County building, which is also where County Commission meets. One of the interesting items on the agenda, which is otherwise fairly light, is a proposal to turn a street into a plaza, and this is a street in North Knoxville that runs between the two buildings of Axle Logistics on Central. Axle Logistics has their headquarters there. They just finished a second building. The building is split, or the two buildings are separated by a very short 170-foot street. It's almost no vehicular traffic at all. And what this proposal is it's they're not granting an easement. They're not selling transferring the ownership of the property, the right of way to Axle. But what they're doing is entering a licensing agreement, and Axle would, if this passes, have to kind of landscape it and maintain it as a bicycle and pedestrian path, which is essentially all it is now anyway. For the next 15 years, they don't have to pay anything. There's no money changes hands. But they have to do the landscaping and the maintenance and the upkeep. And Axle, of course, wants to do it so it'd be easier, safer, more pleasant for their.
Right. It'll give them a little bit of a feel of a campus there instead of just two separate buildings.
Yeah, it is essentially. They got two buildings there. They got parking back behind. There's that, and they have over 600 employees there. I mean, that's the size of a high school. So if this passes, then that would be closed to vehicular traffic. No harm, no foul. Nobody ever drives on it anyway, or very few people ever do. And they would turn that into a pedestrian plaza, and it would still be open to the public. I mean, it wouldn't be just for their employees to go back and forth between the buildings. On the general public would still be able to use this. But Axle would be responsible for maintenance and upkeep. No cost to the taxpayers on that, apparently. So, and also, Planning Commission, Knoxville County Planning Commission is meeting Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Their agenda is kind of hot off the presses, but one item that is on there that's kind of interesting is a rezoning request. Developer David Dewhurst, who has developed a lot of downtown properties and has a couple of properties within spitting distance of the Covenant Hill Park that he hasn't developed yet. That he's so there's a lot of speculation about what he's going to do to develop those. He's assembled another decent sized parcel. This is property at the corner of North Central Street, and Depot Avenue, right by the Southern Railway, the old Southern Railway station there. Right now it's a parking lot, but he's assembled that. It was 3 different parcels. He's assembled that. One of them would need to be rezoned if he's ever going to do anything with it, because it was originally railroad right of way, and now it's his, and so or theirs, the company. Dewhurst Properties, a subsidiary of Dewhurst Properties, would be owning it. Anyway, they're asking for rezoning for that, so it gives us more fodder for speculation about new development connected with the stadium project. Dewhurst has property there. He's got property. He owns the old Greyhound bus station, and he also owns most of the property in the cul-de-sac that is Georgia Avenue on the other side of the stadium. So he is well positioned to take advantage of the proximity to the stadium if in future developments. Anyway, that's all coming up next week. We'll be covering those things. We'll be covering more too. Whatever else comes up, and stuff always comes up. That's the nature of news.
Before we close out, just for the record, I want to hear Jesse tell us the results of our bet from last week. Just on the record.
That's right. So we had an over/under bet on turnout in the election.
I already got my cookies, so I'm good.
And I had positioned that bar at 25,000 votes, which is a high bar, as Scott was saying, for local elections. We have occasionally but rarely in recent years exceeded that, and so Scott and Seth both took the safe under bet, and I went ahead.
Correct, under bet. You're right. Correct. Safe is safe.
That makes it sound timid instead of smart.
Under bet, and I, just for sporting purposes, took the over, and so it did turn out the way, honestly, we all thought it was going to, which it was under 25,000. But not by much.
Not by much at all.
It got a lot closer to that level than I thought it was going to.
So, thank
you, Jesse.
That was kind of almost taunting, making him do that.
I mean, he's got
24,000 would have been a better level to set that at.
You would have won that one.
I said 23.5, so it would have been right there. But you're correct. It was good. That was a good showing for Knoxville standards.
Well,
all we need is a controversial sales tax referendum on every ballot, and maybe we can eventually get back over 25,000 votes.
Well, and we'll try to we'll be like the sports radio guys and try to come up with other things we can bet on next week when we come back.
I mean, I'll bet that Axel thing passes.
This is I bet it passes too. Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's not.
We got to find something that's got some controversy.
You got to get a lot of points on that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can find out what we do actually end up reporting on next week as it happens if you go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe to our news service. We have website stories. We got a newsletter every morning. Go there, do that. We are going to head out now. I want to thank Lord Seth Barber for his intrepid work over there at the control panel. Will Wright, who provided our music for us. Jesse, we will see you next week and talk to the good folks out there next week.
That's right.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.